Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jodie.
Welcome to the FINITE Podcast.
Nice to be here. Thanks for asking me.
It's great to have you here. Exclaimer was our community partner for the past 12 months, and now we're finally doing the podcast that we've been planning for so long.
Thank you for asking me. Thank you.
No worries. I'm super interested in the topic we're talking about today. On FINITE, we sometimes briefly discuss customer data, but I'm keen to get really deep into it and how it can really fuel marketing and B2B marketing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool. So why don't we start? Screw customer data. Let's talk about you. Who are you? Tell us about your career, how you got into marketing, and how you got to where you are now.
Oh, good question. All right, let's start with something I actually know about, so myself. So my name's Jim Turner. I'm the SVP of Customer Experience at Exclaimer. My path to Exclaimer is an interesting one with some twists and turns. So I came on, my company was acquired, so it's about 3 years ago. So we were acquired. This is a company called Customer Thermometer. We were one-click feedback, so it was a SaaS business. It was all about customer engagement and making the most of those tactical interactions with customers that all companies have on a daily basis. And when we were growing that company, we stayed small in terms of headcount. We had a small kind of beautiful, perfectly formed team, but we grew to about 3 million ARR and about 3,000 customers. And we were acquired by Exclaimer. We kind of popped up on Exclaimer's radar because we used to integrate with those guys. So before I was on board, they would send emails, because it's signature management, our technology could sit neatly in the signatures. So what was great about that is if you're sending an email with a survey in the bottom, so a one-click survey, we could actually see, using Exclaimer technology, who had sent it. So we could see who clicked and who the sender was, which is incredibly powerful for companies who may not be able to afford ServiceNow, Salesforce or CRMs. They could actually just get really tactical CSAT data, customer satisfaction data, from any email they send, which was perfect for us. So we grew Customer Thermometer about 5 years. That's from when I came on board to when we sold, and it was a great acquisition. It was a good experience. We were delighted to be bought by Exclaimer, a UK company. Before that, I was in B2B lead gen. So we would basically do lead gen for kind of tier one tech companies like Salesforce and IBM. And we scaled to about 250 people, something like that. We sold that company to an events company called Clarion. So it's kind of, what was interesting through all those threads, through all those businesses, we sort of, at first, if I'm honest, accidentally kind of grew the business around the customers because everyone, a business with a kind of rich culture will always try to build their kind of culture around customers as well as their internal teams. So I think at Customer Thermometer, we just did that in spades. The whole thing was geared around that. And then coming to Exclaimer, the first year was about integrating the technology, integrating the companies. And then Marco Costa came on board as chief exec. And I moved across from CT, from Customer Thermometer, into Exclaimer to initially run the sort of sales operations, and then now I run the customer teams. Customer teams are our technical support team. We have an excellent customer success team, and we have customer operations, which is a back office team. So it's about 60 people.
Wow. That sounds like a really successful story so far.
It's been interesting, yes.
Yeah. Were you on the founding team of Customer Thermometer?
No, that was founded by a woman called Lindsay Willett and a guy called Mark Copeman. And they founded it about, I can't remember, 3 years before I came on board.
Oh, wow.
The idea was it was self-service, it was money while you sleep, and it started to become more and more successful but they wanted to scale, so I came on board to sort of help scale that operation.
Yeah, I was about to say that kind of sounds like your niche, that startup to scale up, boom, growth phase.
Yeah, definitely. It is accidentally something I found I really enjoy. So it's the kind of coming into an incumbent team or some technology that is effective, but they, perhaps they found product market fit and they're scaling very fast, but they haven't got the operations right, or vice versa. So the ops are kind of in tune, but haven't quite found that scale yet. So I like working with founders and putting those ideas into one place to kind of go, right, how do we just make it do this?
Okay, cool. And so what was it like at Exclaimer when you came in? What was the customer team like when you came in, and how has that kind of evolved as you've been part of it?
Good question. So when I came on board to Exclaimer, It's sort of the product market fit curse. So when companies scale fast because they found a niche that just is selling, you don't need to worry too much about that stuff. And I don't mean just Exclaimer, but companies, you kind of go, well, we're just selling so fast, let's just grow it. So we'd have we had a very highly effective sales team. Then I describe it as a donut. So in the middle where you would normally find customers, there wasn't really that. There wasn't an ethos around customers. There wasn't a culture around customers. And a lot of that is just because it was incredibly successful. It was 10 times larger than Customer Thermometer when they acquired us. So they were at 30,000 customers. They're now at 60,000. We're now at 60,000 customers, but 8 million users. So what was interesting was we started to see that you can't really scale effectively without building a kind of infrastructure around customers and caring about their needs, understanding them in the first instance, and then offering them the right service for that. I mean, we did have a customer support team when I came on board who were great, really effective, very IT focused, very solution focused, very kind of ticket based, but they were good, they knew their stuff. So my job was to kind of fill in the donut, really, to build out a customer success team. We have a great VP of Customer Success who's ex-Mimecast, a guy called Eric. And he came in and we had a good team of people, but he's galvanized them into a high-performing team where we focus on the onboarding of the customers. We have to do a one-to-many approach in lots of instances, but really teasing out those cohorts, which I think we're going to talk about a bit later, making sure we offer enterprise customers that kind of one-to-one, but not concierge service, because it doesn't... you have to be careful with SaaS because you don't want to go, we offer you an onboarding. Because really your technology should be good enough that you don't need one. So it's kind of making sure we get that balance of, we'll hold your hand through this process, we can take away your problems, is that kind of service that we offer. So Eric helped us build those kind of motions around our customer success team.
Okay. I feel through that explanation, you're almost alluding to the fact that you don't need customer data for early stage or hyper growth. Is that correct?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it totally depends on what you're trying to sell. So I think if there is, our marketing at Exclaimer has always been excellent, truly. So the kind of website does the selling. So it's kind of where we are not anymore, but this is going back. We were very utility. We were designed to do one thing. We did it well. We were robust. We were credible. We were easy to buy. So it's kind of by the time they came in as trials, they really know what they're trialing. We've expanded into a lot more kind of an area of marketing tools and that kind of expanded toolkit around the signature real estate. What more can we do with that space? But back then we didn't really have that. So I think if you find product market fit fast, yes, you absolutely don't have to. I think I would have loved to have come in a couple of years earlier to build in those kind of mechanisms to tease out that real customer intelligence at early doors, because it just helps everything later. So it helps everything around your product development, any kind of ideation around what do customers want. A lot of the time, customers won't even know they're using us because it just neatly fits in their signatures. If it's server side, they won't even necessarily see them going out. So there's a real kind of understanding our customers is part of that is also making sure our customers know they use us and what we can offer. So yes, I don't think it's always essential. If you add it early on in a startup, it just adds an amazing stamp of credibility. So if you're going into kind of prospect calls and you really understand the customer's journey early doors, and you can lay it out for them in a way that they understand. Always start with asking questions. So it's kind of like, what are your problems? How can we solve those? But if you do have that customer data and you can point at it in front of prospects, it just shows you really know your stuff. So I don't think it's essential to scale, but I think there is an inflection point where if you haven't got that robust the kind of mechanism behind the scene to capture it, you're never going to truly scale, in my opinion.
Okay. So it feels like product market fit is always key. You could probably use customer data to find that along the way, but if you already have it, then you're good to go for a bit.
Absolutely.
You use customer data to evolve your platform, make it more robust, make it stickier for customers. I want to bring this a bit back and talk about who owns customer data, because I feel like we've talked about so far retention, we've talked about customer experience and that onboarding process. Would it ever fit in marketing, and Which parts of it?
Oh, that is a great question. Very topical for Exclaimer. So we have a lot of customer data, and the answer is any team can own it. I think most teams can make a case for it. I think marketing have to. If you look at the kind of racy model, so who's responsible, who's accountable for it, that's sort of where you get into those very nuanced kind of who really owns this. The most effective solution we've had so far, and this isn't just around data, this is just cross-functional working around product, around marketing, around the customer teams, is we have a voice of customer meeting. We have a voice of customer community within the business where we discuss all of these things, and it is truly my favorite meeting in the business. It's where you get the really rich ideas. It's where it's very flat hierarchically, so people can just throw stuff in. Cool. It's almost open invite as well to other people in the business. So if you have new sales leaders that want to kind of get involved, and it's there we talk about our customer data problems. So for instance, Steph, who runs our CRM team, she is an absolute genius. She's brilliant. And she will be very clear about what's needed around customer data. So it's kind of like are they cleaning it up or deduping or whatever. We run our customer meetups once a quarter. So there's just a couple of customers getting together in London, having some pizza, drink some beers, and we'll talk about technology or our product, or we'll have guest speakers. And we want to make that amazing, and we want to really target the right customers. So we have to get that richness. So ownership is sort of, I think, until you absolutely have to say they own it, keep it as agnostic as possible. As long as you can execute, as long as you're getting shit done, I think it's cool, getting things done. I think it's okay, but really it's just, as long as everyone is talking to each other through this scaling phase, and I would say Exclaimer came a bit late to it. So I think probably 2 or 3 years back, if we'd had this group, we wouldn't have the problems we've had now. But then you have things like, from a very technical perspective, our product usage data. So what users are actually doing in the platform. We've got a data team specifically for that. So we use some tech called Heap and Databricks, and we export as much of that rich information as possible. A guy called Bruno runs this data team where we're sort of like working out, well, who runs the analysis? So ownership, back to your question, is interesting because it's like, well, they can own this pot of data, but who's looking at it? Who's learning from it? Who's querying it? So do I go to Bruno and say, show me everything from X to Y of this cohort that's done this or this, which is fine, but that's very static, isn't it? You'll get that direct answer, but often when you're querying data or customer data or looking at it, it's the stuff you're not asking that's interesting. Because you're like, that thing I thought was good, look at these guys, what are they doing? Yeah. Why is this region updating their signature templates all at the same time around this? And it turns out it might be an event in their industry or something, or seasonality. So it's kind of, if you keep it too siloed, you'll always ask, I think, quite binary questions.
True. And
if you have that dynamism across a business and a group, I mean, we're lucky that we have an exec team that we kind of often lead with data. So we do ask those questions. So I think for as long as you can, keep it agnostic.
Interesting. Yeah, you've touched on a few ways that marketing would kind of come into that conversation, looking for anomalies in the data. I love anomalies in data. I think they tell you so much about possibility. You did mention that Exclaimer has been having some challenges had they not enabled customer data sooner. Yeah. What do those look like?
Oh, what are the challenges? What are the problems? The problems we've had are when a company is scaling fast, it takes real balls to kind of go, we need to not necessarily slow down that kind of pace of growth, but understand that it will not continue like that. You have to make changes for the future. And I think when we were scaling, everything was growing. We got 30% year-on-year growth. It's all just wonderful. It's knowing that there will be a point when this will have to change. And if we have no customer data to kind of look at, to analyze, and me and Eric, my VP of CS, talk about this a lot. It's the difference between knowing and understanding. So we can know our customers, super. We can know the cohorts, we can know the regions, but really understanding what they need from us is a world apart. Like that's when you get into extraordinary customer experience. You kind of have to, I think, knowing stuff, you can be relatively tactical, you can approach people at the right time, geographically, by size, but really understanding it is how are they using it? Where are the use cases we haven't even twigged? We have 60,000 customers. Who's doing what under the hood? Tons of stuff. So the problems we had were really convincing the business, and this wasn't like Marco was straight away on we need to understand our customers, and it was very challenging at first to get under the hood because the engineering team at this point owned that. This is going back a few years, owned this part of the business, and for them it just wasn't a priority. You know, they're trying to build product features, they're trying to ship stuff, get it to market fast. That's the real time pressure for them. Understood. But unless you invest in that part, you'll pay for it later. And we started to pay for it, I would say probably last year when we were trying to upgrade customers. So we brought in some new pricing tiers. We did a lot of thought, a ton of time on that. We were happy with the pricing tiers. We had a pro set of features. So we wanted to start like talking to our customers and moving them up. But how do you find that needle in a haystack? If you can kind of know them regionally, that's fine. But you want to speak to those real champions in a business, the ones that get it, the ones that are using it all the time. I reference Slack, so like people who would wear Slack socks. So who are those people, the equivalent in Exclaimer? Who would wear Exclaimer socks? So the people that go, I love Exclaimer. So when we have a customer event and when people ask questions around the product, they're like, I use it every day. I'm like, oh my God, God bless you. Let me speak to you, let me get in your brain. Because you're never going to really be able to scale. And if you're private equity backed, and you want to stand at the board, you got to stand up and you've got to defend numbers or explain what's happening. You cannot do it without that intelligence, without that kind of layer. You're always a bit finger in the air.
Okay.
So I think the problems are getting to the top of the list, prioritizing it amongst all the other chaos that's going on all the time in a company that's scaling fast, making it the most important thing, even though it probably isn't at that time. You have to be quite prescient about it and just go, I know there will be a time when this is critical to everything. Product development, growth trajectory, how we scale the business, where we put our teams next, what do we outsource, You know, there's so many questions that need to be answered with that data. So unless you've got the groundwork in place, which we didn't have, but now we have.
Awesome. So it sounds, I've heard this word so much lately, customer obsession. It just sounds like you're absolutely customer obsessed and that fuels long-term growth rather than that quick spike.
Hells yes. I mean, so much yes. Yeah. Customer obsession is interesting. I think it's Rackspace originally said that all way back when. So customer obsession is because it's kind of a bit, you know, as a sort of phrase, it's quite an interesting one. I think it's when a company gets so obsessed about because if you think about what really good service is now, even compared to 5 years ago pre-COVID, and then going back 5 years before that, what is the real difference? So for me, it's things like when people say to me, "Could we jump on a call?" And I say this a lot. It's like, absolutely not. I don't want to jump on a call. You know, answer the thing. You know, it's those things where it's like, even if a SaaS business doesn't have pricing on, it's like, contact us. I'm like, I really don't want to. You've got a price. You know what I mean? It's those kind of things where they're not interested in making it easy for you in the very first instance. So my first interaction with this company, they're just not interested in making it easy for me. They're not making it easy to buy, easy to talk to. So then we look at things like chat. So chat is, you know, AI is going to eat the world. But then if you look at technology now, think about the last time you used a chat service and it was excellent. I certainly haven't. I can't think of one when it's been like, this is actually hotels.com is very good. But there's when the service is like sharp and good, they know what you want. So they understand that my problem is time. So it's kind of like an understanding that my problem might be price or whatever it might be at that point. Unless I've got that richness in terms of customer data and customer intelligence, I'm going to make poor choices around my chat journey because I'll be answering the questions I think they want answered rather than questions they do want answered. And if you think about from a marketing perspective, let's say we're trying to get people to an event and you kind of go, okay, you've got this chat experience. They want a new invoice or something's incorrect and the chat can do that and it just pops it in. It's all wonderful and you can administrate the whole account just from this experience. That's a win. I don't want to speak to people. I just want to do it now. I want to do it at 2 a.m. in a hotel room. And then, say towards the end, the bot just says, I can see you're based in London. We've got a customer event coming up in 2 weeks' time. Would you like to sign up here? Here are the speakers. Just as a tactical interaction during the thing that they have to do. Suddenly I'm like, that is great. You know, they're not making me do extra work. They're just laying it in my lap and go, if you're interested. And even if I'm not in that moment, I know it's happening. Or I know that they do customer events. Or that's a thing I might, you know, I've got a prospect. So it's interesting how that customer intelligence and that customer data suddenly solidifies a backbone of customer service that you would never have had before, and making it really exceptional. So you talked about customer obsession. That's it for me. The customer obsession isn't trying to make them have a telephone call once a quarter to talk about their needs. It's let's give them exactly what they want, when they want it, when they need it. And then you're much more likely to get more stuff down the line, because it's a story. So it was actually SalesLoft that did this the first time. It happens quite a lot now, but SalesLoft did this the first time. We'd signed up for SalesLoft, this is going back a couple of years, and our CS person, they'd been in our account, and they dropped me a message and had a little video and just said, I've just been in your account, these things weren't set up, so I've taken the liberty of doing it myself. Here's a video of how to do it for next time. And it was literally 90 seconds, just when you drop in here, you do this, you just toggle this on, and you're done. I've done it for you, this is how you do it for next time. It's really respectful of my time, it's genuinely helpful, and I've told this story about 50 times. So that's how you kind of just boom it out into the world, by giving them an experience that people will talk about that might feel like nothing. You know, I guarantee that CS person has no idea that I tell this story all the time. But build it into your playbooks where, what are the customer's needs? Do they need to speak to me once a quarter? They absolutely don't. I need to speak to them to build my team and my structure and my playbook. So that's a need of mine, not theirs. So it's always that, like, what do they actually get from this?
Like, you've talked about ease, but another perspective is I'm obsessed with the idea of making marketing feel like fateful. And you've clearly explained how customer data is great at apprehending their needs to make that you just meet them at the right time. They're like, oh, it's meant to be.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's so funny, because if you think about AI and data and technology, the amount of people who try to sell to me and have no idea if I'm actually buying something. We use a customer health score software called Hook. They're based in just around the corner from here, actually. And they contacted me, and it was a random It was a call from an inside sales team, and it was a really funny interaction, and they just really stuck top of mind, and it was genuinely really hilarious accidentally. But it was one of those things I thought, it's so needle in a haystack still. So you got Zoom Info, you've got the kind of data platforms, but it is so random. So to create that kind of fateful moment of like, oh my God, this is meant to be, I find that genuinely very interesting. Like, how we still can't do it. So we're all worried AI is going to steal our jobs, but no one knows that I'm in the market to buy X piece of technology still. And I kind of feel, which is great, because it just means there's still so much opportunity to be had.
I agree. Like I say, you've done a fantastic job of convincing me, and I'm sure our listeners, that customer data is the way forward, the way that it becomes the glue in an organization. Everyone can get involved and everyone can use it in ways that they wouldn't even expect. I love that. And on that note, you've talked so much about what customer data can enable, from I think you said deciding pricing structure to hitting someone with an event when they need it. Like, there's such an array. What kind of data are you actually gathering? And is it specific to campaigns, or is it kind of from a general pot that you draw on? How do you know that you're asking the right questions? Yeah.
Tricky question. How do you know you're asking the right questions? I think based on what you're getting out of it. I think it's like, so we have a great planning structure in our business. So we do quarterly planning, we do QBRs, then we have a board meeting, and then we're currently in our FY25 planning and strategic planning for that. And I think it's in the first instance, I have to, hands up, it's what do we need to know? Like, what do we need to know to kind of scale our teams, to grow our teams? If we just take upgrades as an example, let's take upgrades and cross-sell. So you're moving a customer up a tier, or you're trying to add on a new product. So it's kind of like when Marco says to me, okay, what do you think you can get from this? What's the growth look like? How many people in your team? It becomes very practical on that level. So you kind of like, what questions you need to ask is like, is this actually going to work for people? How easy is it to sell? If cross-selling is effectively like totally new piece of business, like I need to understand that. So I just have to have the calls. I have to speak to the customers. There is no way around that. Okay. So that kind of layer. But then under the hood, you get an appetite for the market. But what's the potential? Okay. So if I know, for instance, you can use platforms like Zoom Info, In our pro tier, we have customer thermometer built into that. So you've got one-click feedback from your email signatures. So that's built into pro. You can use Zoom Info to do a ABM on our existing customer base and which one of those are kind of using other CSAT tools. So that becomes a consolidation thing for them to go. You could use customer thermometer all in pro. You can just leave that one you've already got signed up for, save you this much money a month. So you can kind of do effective planning. Asking customers about product features is an interesting one. So I think if you come back to how do you know you're asking the right questions, because you kind of get that Henry Ford, if he'd asked people what they wanted, they'd have said a faster horse. So you kind of, it's like that's the problem. So sometimes you just have to go, this is the right, are we convinced? Are we convinced as a business? And I think it's also, let's not worry about being too definite about it. It's like, we know we need to cross-sell. Is there an appetite for this? Can we do this? If not, why not? So I think it's a real balance of, well, you know what it is? It's always the same, isn't it? Data points. As many data points into your decision making as possible.
Great.
And part of that be customer intelligence from all the stuff your customers are telling you that they don't know they're telling you, just how they use the product when they log in, how often they update templates. Are they logging in enough to make a kind of a proper marketing suite of analysis tools be effective or not? So you can learn a lot just without telling, and then most of it you just got to ask.
Okay, cool. With asking, this is a bit of a tactical question, but I'm sure long form or short form or even oral answers if you're doing it in person. How do you measure sentiment and transform those into data points?
Ooh. So there's a few ways to measure sentiment. So we have our tactical surveys going out all the time to customers around our service quality and our whether they would recommend us. So it's kind of that's the main sort of NPS pulse we run. So that's happening all the time. And with AI brilliance, and this is where things like AI become much more meaningful, much more pragmatic, is when you kind of pull all those data points together. Every comment from the last 3 months from all of our customers, from all our sources, you just ask ChatGPT to group it. And suddenly you've got groupings and you've got really meaningful, effective, actionable stuff. So you're kind of making sense of that, all the words, all the kind of copy we get back from customers. So I love that part of it. So that's it. The main thing is, though, tactical, making sure people can speak to you whenever they need to or tell you how they feel whenever they need to. G2 is a really interesting one. So you get a lot of engagement from customers who actually want to say, this has really helped me. I think people are much more choosy around technology, and that isn't just because of price. I think that's because technology is really cool now. And I think people, I really mean it. I think people are really interested in does it look beautiful? What are they, it's that kind of level where people want it to be great. So I think it would be tactical, and then making sure you're speaking to customers from our perspective as often as possible and asking those key questions at the end. So it's building that into everything we do all the time.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. AI, if it's good for anything, it is good for measuring sentiment. I assume that you'd be using AI.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Insane.
Yeah, but we use AI. So it's kind of, the things for me are around AI are that it can just do the heavy lifting, which I love, and it's making sure we build our processes, building AI into that. And there's also making sure that those experiences customers get are unique and correct. So making sure subject lines are, appropriate or perfect. I love that fateful thing you just talked about. That's going to stay with me. It's just, and I think it's brilliant for that. Like, they're learning our customers' needs properly is really effective. So I think there's lots of ways to build it in. At the moment, and I think it's the same for a lot of companies, it's just a layer, and it's bringing that into the heart.
We are coming to the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming on, Jim. It's been a pleasure to hear about customer data from you.
Thank you. Really, really lovely to be here. Thank you.